Well, the last episode of Sparked came out last Friday, and it was posted on YouTube this morning. And that means that this is my very last review of a Sparked episode. One thing before we get started, quick announcement, I have made a Sims Twitter now, ScrunchieSims on Twitter, just like it is here, that you can follow for updates. I'll be posting things about new content, things that wouldn't really fit in a video necessarily. I post some of my Sims art over there, and maybe some polls about what kind of content I'm gonna do next. So if you want to make sure you're not missing out on that, you can follow me, ScrunchieSims, on Twitter. There's something I feel like I need to talk about before we get into the episode review, but I think they kind of go hand in hand. If you've been in the Sims community recently, you've probably seen that the conversation around skin tones has come to the forefront of the Sims community discussions. Basically, if you haven't heard, The Sims 4 is not very good at representing diverse skin tones, especially darker ones, and there have been a lot of player complaints that these skin tones are not accurate, are not a wide range enough of them, and many things. A lot of people want a color wheel for skin tones so that people could really fine-tune what they want. And I think this is really important. I mean, big Sims YouTubers, Sims community people have been voicing their concerns on this and using their platform. And I know I have like a tiny platform in comparison to them, but I think it would be really remiss of me to like not say anything about it because it's important. And I think a lot of people are thinking like, why now? Why do we care about this now? And the thing is, this discussion has been going on for the entirety of the amount of time that The Sims 4 has been out. If you remember, right when The Sims 4 came out, the Sims community was very active on Tumblr. That's where I was at. And there was a huge, huge discussion around skin tones and why are there swatches and not some kind of gradient. So those conversations have been happening for years and years, and I'm glad it seems that they've reached a fever pitch now where there's more attention. But EA, as of when I'm filming this video, has not yet responded to that, which isn't great. If you are familiar with the content of my videos, you probably know that I am very much an EA critical simmer. I think it's a really important critical discussion to have, and I really hope that actual change is made in the game and not just lip service done to it. And, it really rubs me the wrong way when I see people comparing diverse skin tones in the game to features like cars or like, oh, there should be weather in the base game in Sims 5. Like, those are not remotely at the same level. And anyone thinking that like non-object babies is something you compare to like an actual good range of skin tones or some kind of slider for that is like, I don't know where you're at, because those are different universe things. Like weather, cars, those kind of things is not the same as actually being able to represent someone. So if you're thinking in that kind of like, oh, what are the features we deserve in the game, and you somehow think that those things are equivalent, like challenge why you think that. Anyway, I didn't mean for that to get as intense as it got. Let's get to the final episode of The Sims Sparked. Going off of what we were just talking about skin tones, you can see very quickly in the beginning of this episode, it was also featured in the first episode of Sparked, that this show is featuring X Mirror Mirror's Melanin Pack, which has a larger range of skin tones for darker skinned Sims. They're featuring it in her bio, which is great because that's like what she does. That's what she's like known for, among other things. But it really rubs me the wrong way that EA feels like they're kind of taking credit a little bit for her creativity because their game was insufficient in the first place. And now they get to kind of say how creative and how diverse their game is because of work that she had to do. And the tone of that just really struck me as not respectful, not the right thing to do. There was like 6 minutes of recap at the beginning of this episode, which was kind of weird. It's like they thought people would be tuning in for this one after not watching it, but like it's only 4 episodes. It's not that long. I feel like anyone who's watching this has probably watched the others or is like skipping to the end to see who won. I think a lot of that honestly was just so they could hit the 42-minute mark they needed to air, and they didn't have a lot going on as far as content of the show in this episode because they had already done the skills challenge in episode 3 before. So there's only one challenge in this game where the whole team works together just like it used to be, And this challenge is called the Play with Life Challenge. And it's basically focusing on what these Sims players and what these teams find in the Sims. Like, how has the Sims helped them? How has it affected their life? And so they're being challenged to tell more personal stories, which I think is a good challenge. Of course, Play with Life is kind of the Sims series mantra, slogan, whatever at this point, which it's not necessarily my favorite, but I guess it works. Of course, each of the individual teams took a little bit of a different tact with this. Team Llama decided that Ex Mira Mira's story represented all of their general themes and experiences well, so they made the main character, Ex Mira Mira, herself. On the other hand, Team Cowplant created a sort of amalgamation character out of all of their experiences and meshed it all together into one central sim that could express them all. This time, Dave went around and checked on all the teams during the challenge, and it kind of reminded me of when I used to do some 72-hour film competitions, and they would have like a guest judge, or the mentors would like walk around and see what you're doing, because everyone while you're working on it is kind of sheepish, like, yeah, I hope it's okay. Yeah, I hope it's good. It reminded me of those kind of vibes, and I really sympathized with the anxiety of all of the contestants in that moment. I also loved the editor for Team Cowplant. He like yelled with them when there was 10 minutes left, and I just thought that was very fun. I kind of wish the editors were a bit more highlighted in this because they seem like fun personalities, but they also did not have time to do that, so I understand why they didn't. I think just coming from a film background, I love like the film TV industry people, and I want to know what's up with that guy, you know? So as the challenge progresses, both teams realize that they're kind of going after similar stories. Both team stories deal with finding who you are, not being afraid to express yourself, and overcoming bullying or doubters, things like that. So especially after realizing that their themes were so similar, which I think probably a lot of people would have gotten to those kind of themes anyway, because that's kind of what the prompt was for, but it made them nervous that they were tackling kind of the same subject. And you could tell that they were all really nervous to show this to the judges. Of course, there's a lot of stakes attached to winning this. It's just you want what you put out to be good. So you could really see the anxiety, especially with it being personal stories, with sharing them with the world. So Team Llama showed theirs first, and they had a story that showed Ex Mira Mira growing up, and it talks about a lot of themes that I think are really relatable to a lot of people, and yet it still felt like we were really specifically watching her story. And that blend of universal and specific is one of the things that makes great storytelling, and so I thought it really hit the nail on the head. And I'll admit, I got a little misty-eyed watching that, especially seeing the connection that each member of Team Llama had with the themes. And I think it's awesome to see that all these people are really successful at what they're doing and have overcome those things. I think that's really inspiring. Now, Team Cowplant had a bit of a similar theme, but they went with this storyline that had one character but used each of the team members' voices at different times, and I thought they did those transitions so well, and they really did make this great conglomeration between all of their experiences in this character, and I thought that was really seamless. I feel like it didn't really come across that the sort of creative and the naysayer Sims were imaginary friends necessarily. They kind of just seemed like metaphorical figures. So I don't know if that came across, but I also don't know if it necessarily needed to for this challenge. And I also thought it was really great because there are so many queer simmers where Sims has been part of their journey, including myself. And I thought it was great to see that front and center on this, national TV show about the Sims, and getting the Sims creators to see that. And I just think that was a great part of the community and something I really related to personally. And I loved Dr. Ashley talking about how The Sims is an outlet for so many people. For the average person, especially for an adult playing Sims, that is an outlet for them outside of maybe their day job or their family or something like that. And I think that's a really important part of the community to see. Honestly, both teams did so well in this challenge, and I didn't know who would win. I think either of them could have pulled it off. I could see either team winning. I think a lot of that is up to some of the execution, and we don't really get to see necessarily the full edit as it might have been presented to the judges. So it's hard for us to judge that, and I don't really like choosing people I hope to win in this kind of situation. I very much just kind of like see what happens. And the judges talked about how Team Llama had this more kind of realistic, grounded story, very much real life, while Team Cowplant did a little more of a fantastical or stylized kind of story. But we're left at the end of the deliberation with Taylor basically saying you have to follow your heart. And then when Rayvon comes out and he's about to announce the winner, he basically says that they just had to choose what moved them most. So very subjective, but all of these things are subjective, and once you realize that, you kind of let go of being upset that things are subjective a little bit. And it turns out it was kind of a split decision. Kelsey got very emotional at Team Cowplant's story. Taylor got very emotional about Llama's story. Dave was never really emotional, but seemed to like both of them. I don't know where the split happened, but both of these teams were great, and you could tell that from the fact that there was a split in the judges' decision. But in the end, they did decide that Team Llama wins. Now, I would be happy if any of the teams won. I think they're all great. I think all the contestants we all know on this show from the very beginning are great simmers, really creative people, and we'd be happy for anyone to win. But I think it's specifically so cool that this team came together after struggling to work with each other, after having some difficulties, and that most of them are a little bit less known or have less name recognition than some of the other contestants that were on the show. So I think it's great that these simmers who maybe don't have as big of a platform now have this thing to their name that they've won and got to show off what they can do. Well, that's the end. As abruptly as the end of this show ended, I actually wish they had had a little more of a lead out or something, like hopes of what each contestant is gonna do with the money, or like hopes of what they're gonna do in The Sims soon, or how this inspired them, you know, or maybe talking to some of the eliminated contestants like they do on Great British Bake Off, where, you know, they talk about how happy they are that someone else won. You know, those are some feel-good moments I maybe would have liked instead of those 6 minutes of intro at the beginning, but we get what we get. But anyway, thank you for watching my Sparked reviews, this review, and the other ones. I didn't really realize when I put out my first reaction video that this would become a recurring thing that people would want to hear my take on, and it's just been a really great response to see all the comments of people engaging with my critique. What did you think? I want you to comment, as always. But also this means that I'll have a chance to do some new things on my channel since I won't be doing this every week. So I would love to know what you want me to do. And that's also a great reason to follow me on Twitter, because there will probably be polls about some video ideas, updates on new videos I'm gonna do. I really love doing this kind of critical analysis stuff, and I would love to do it on more aspects of the game, things surrounding the game, stuff like that. So if you have anything you would like me to do a series or videos on like this, I would love to hear it. Again, thank you for watching.